How did we double the CTR of our Twitter ads? Why do we pay to promote our content on Twitter? And why don't we track any conversions from our ads? In this episode, I'm going to share the results of 2 Twitter ads experiments that we ran and share our thought process in regards to promoting our content with Twitter ads. Let's go! Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tim Solo and you're watching SaaS Marketing Vlog, a place where I'm showing you the behind the scenes of how we do marketing at Ahrefs. You may or may not know that I'm quite an active user of Twitter, and we also have a Twitter account for Ahrefs brand, which actually has 3 times more followers than I do. So whenever we publish a new blog post or release a new video, we would often tweet the same link from both of these accounts. And what I started to notice was that my tweets would often generate similar engagement to the tweets from our branded account, even though I have 3 times less followers. Which is kind of expected actually. People on Twitter prefer to hear from other people rather than brands, right? But aside from sharing our content with our existing Twitter followers, we often invest some money into Twitter ads. This is to ensure that the awesome content that we put so much time and effort into would go beyond our Twitter following and reach as many people as possible. So, given that people on Twitter prefer to hear from other people and not brands, I wondered if Twitter ads from my personal account would perform better than the ads from our branded account. After sharing my thoughts with SQ, who is in charge of our branded Twitter account, we decided that it was worth doing some experiments. In our first experiment, we tweeted 4 articles using the same copy from both my personal account and branded Ahrefs account. We called it business copy because it talked about the article in a rather formal way without any personal touch. 4 pairs of tweets will appear on your screen right now. Just hit pause if you want to read and compare the copy. We spent $200 on each of these tweets, and here's how they performed. In 3 out of 4 of our experiments, the CTI from my personal account was slightly higher than from our brand account, despite the fact that the copy was the same. And in all 4 experiments, the cost per click on my tweets was a little cheaper. In the end, ads from my personal Twitter account have generated 20% more clicks for the same amount of money, which kind of validated what I mentioned earlier. People prefer to hear from people rather than brands. But the real magic happened in our second experiment. We took 4 new articles and promoted them from both accounts with the same budget and the same targeting. But this time I tweeted these articles from my personal account in a slightly more conversational way, while we couldn't use the same copy at our branded account because it would look kind of odd. And the results were pretty surprising. The CTR of my tweets was nearly 2 times higher than the CTR of tweets from our branded account. And cost per click was substantially cheaper. All in all, my tweets have generated more than 2 times more clicks for the same ad budget. When I tweeted the results of this experiment, a few people said that they were not surprised and referred to the same reasoning that I mentioned earlier. People prefer to hear from other people, not brands. But it was nice to back up a theory with some real numbers, right? But that's not the end of the story. In replies to the tweet of mine, a few people wanted to know how our ads converted, which is a perfectly fair question. I mean, the whole point of investing money in advertising is to get that money back with a profit, right? Well, we are not tracking the conversions that come from promoting our content on Twitter. And I'll be happy to explain our thought process behind that decision. First of all, let's not confuse content marketing with direct response marketing. The latter is all about persuading people to take action right here, right now, and therefore conversion tracking is easy and straightforward. Content marketing, on the other hand, is a completely different story. While you can get some immediate conversions from your content, the sales cycle for a product like Ahrefs is quite a bit longer than reading a single article on our blog. And besides, the value of content marketing goes way beyond user acquisition. Here at Ahrefs, we invest a lot of time and effort into our content because it also contributes to user retention, user reactivation, and revenue expansion. Let me explain those real quick. As for retention, we have tens of thousands of paying customers at Ahrefs, and many of them are not using our tools to their fullest potential. So by creating and promoting content that teaches them actionable ways to use Ahrefs, we're giving them more reasons to stay with us longer. As for reactivation, there are many thousands of people who have used Ahrefs in the past and still have an account with us, but that account is not active anymore. Well, there is a good chance that by reading our content, they would discover a cool new use case which would make them want to reactivate their Ahrefs account. And finally, revenue expansion. When our existing customers consume our content, they might discover new and useful use cases that are only available on a higher tier plan, which can motivate them to upgrade. Or they might learn ways to scale their marketing and therefore max out their monthly Ahrefs usage, which also leads to upgrading their plan. And here's one more thing that I believe is worth mentioning in this context. By educating our existing users on how to use Ahrefs more effectively, we also accelerate word of mouth, in the sense that every new actionable use case that people learn from us is something that they can later teach to their friends or their core workers, which often leads to them becoming our paying customers too. Do you see where I'm going with that? If we needed to justify promoting our content with Twitter ads, we'd have to build a pretty advanced attribution model which would take into account all of these ways that our content contributes to our bottom line revenue. And given the size of our ad spend, it isn't really worth bothering. It's not like we're spending $1 million a year to promote our content on Twitter. Oh, and by the way, I don't think I've ever seen any SaaS company build an attribution model of that complexity. So if you know any cases where someone would track the influence of paid content promotion on things like user retention or revenue expansion, please share them in the comments to this video. I would love to check them out. So far I only talked about the quote-unquote direct impact that promoting content on Twitter has on our company's revenue growth. But there's one more reason why we think it makes sense to invest money in promoting our content. And that reason is backlinks. Whenever we pay to promote our content on Twitter, or anywhere else really, we're increasing the likelihood of someone linking to it from their website. I mean, the more people that see your content, the higher the chance that someone would link to it, right? And every new link helps our content to rank higher in Google and bring us more passive and consistent traffic over time. Don't get me wrong, I'm not advising you to run ads on Twitter in order to get links to your content. This is more like a side benefit that you get in addition to all those things that I've mentioned previously, rather than a campaign objective. So based on everything that I've shared with you so far, you might be thinking, but Tim, even if you don't track the ROI of your Twitter ads, you could at least track things like time on page or bounce rate, which would tell you if those clicks from Twitter ads are any good at all. Yeah, we did have a discussion about that in our marketing team. And it turned out that you can interpret those metrics in many different ways actually. Observing my own habits, I rarely read the articles I see on Twitter right away. Most of the time I bookmark them for later or add them to my Pocket app so that to read them on my iPad. Which means users like myself might easily skew the time on page and bounce rate metrics from Twitter ad traffic. But if I later read that article and I like it, I might actually tweet it out, sending a little bit of extra traffic to that page, which you cannot trace back to the original Twitter ad, right? So in the end we decided that our objective with Twitter ads is to get maximum exposure for our newly published content, without sweating over any specific metric. And the results of our experiment with a personal Twitter account versus a branded Twitter account were quite useful in that context. And to wrap up this episode, let me also add that the few $100s that we spend on Twitter ads are actually peanuts compared to the total work hours that go into each piece of content that we produce. And with so much time and effort invested into our content, it is almost a crime not to spend a little money on ads so that more people would see it. I mean, if you can't justify spending money to promote your content, how did you justify spending time to create it in the first place? And that's it. Thanks for watching this episode of SaaS Marketing Vlog. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!